Good morning and good evening, everyone attending all around the world. Welcome to Africa Day 2021. Thank you so much for joining us today. Africa Day was founded to celebrate African unity, our diversity, our cultures, and today we will be doing so by engaging in dialogues and talking about the potential of our people all around the African diaspora. Even now, as I'm greeting you all today, I'm proudly wearing one of my South African beaded bracelets I got last time I was back down home. To start our event, we will be beginning with a civic engagement panel, which will be moderated by Mona Davids.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to those who are joining us from back home on the continent. My name is Mona Davids. I am the president of Social Impact Strategies. I am proudly African and I am proudly South African. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's event, celebrating African unity and most importantly, Africa Rising. Our first panel today is the Civic Engagement panel. Our speakers on the panel are Mohammed, the chairman of African Advisory Council of the Bronx Borough President's Office here in New York City. Mr. Mardah is also president of Africans Help Desk, and he is a co-founder of Africa Diaspora Society and its president as well. Our next guest is Mr. Sadio Barry, who you'll see in a minute. I think he just stepped away. Mr. Barry is the president of the Senegalese Association of America based here in New York City. The Senegalese Association is the oldest African immigrant nonprofit, not just in New York City, but in the US. The Senegalese Association has been around for over 3 decades. Our final guest, last but never ever least, is Mr. Gbubemi Okotieuro. Mr. Okotieuro is the Vice President of Government Affairs for Berkeley College, a lobbyist, a very long time political strategist and operator, who has been actively involved many times behind the scenes in New York City politics and in the African community. Not trying to date Gbubemi or date myself, but you know, for maybe 2 to 3 decades. But we're going to get started with the panel. If our panelists could each take 2 minutes to introduce themselves. And we'll start off with Mr. Mardah.
Why do you always have to start off with me? Why can't it be Professor
because I know you are always there and you always got my back. And you always bring it home.
Well, thank you. Anyway, good day, everyone, wherever you are watching us today. Today is Africa Day. And so we are celebrating the continent. And there's going to be different activities, as Mona said. My name is Mohammed Mardah, and I believe Mona has introduced me pretty much. I am the chairman of the African Advisory Council to the Bronx Borough President's Office, and I am also the co-founder of Africans Help Desk, which is a platform, created to really exactly what it says, to help our community. One of the greatest issues that I've noticed in our community is the lack of information. And so Africans Help Desk is created to really, bridge the gap between resources and the community. In addition to other things that, we've been doing, I'm also a board of trustee of the New York Botanical Garden. I served on the Mayor's Interfaith Advisory Council for COVID response and other assignments that I have done. So I am looking forward to this conversation. Civic engagement, there's so much excitement in New York right now. With elections coming up, almost 75% of the city council is up for election. the borough presidency. There's so much excitement in terms of politics in New York right now. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the expert, Mr. Gbubemi, break it down for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mardah. Our next introduction will be from Mr. Barry. Mr. Barry, if you could take 2 minutes to tell us about yourself as well as the Senegalese Association.
Thank you, Muna. Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure for me to meet any of you, and also it is a blessing to celebrate the second annual African Day. We used to say we are here for the civic engagement, but before that, I would like to introduce myself. I am Sadio Yaya Bari, the president of the Senegalese Association of America. It is a nonprofit organization which has been established for 34 years in New York State. We're located in New York City. We have our headquarters here. We have all Senegalese people who joined this organization for decades. Our main job is to assist people to help them for any issue that they have when it comes to housing, immigration, when it comes to job, when it comes to find the right lawyer, when it comes to learn English. And when our members are sick, we help them from the hospitals. When they pass away, we take the body back home. Basically, that's why we're doing here for decades and decades. And it is a pleasure for me to participate in this forum. Hopefully, each of us, we're gonna learn the meaning, the basic of the civic engagement. What is mean a lot personally for me has been a leader of my organization for almost 3 years. So it is a pleasure for me to meet all of you guys. I'm not familiar with all the faces, but I know like Mardah, Maimuna, and Muna. And I'm looking forward to learn a lot, get more benefits for what we're gonna talking about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. And final introduction is Mr. Okotieuro.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Happy African Day to everybody, panelists and those listening to us far and wide and near. My name is Gbubemi Okotieuro. I'm a New York resident and by the way of Nigeria, as you can tell. I think the question continues to be a question of what does it mean to be an African living in the United States? As all of you know, there are multiple ways in which people identify themselves. I always joke and say, all of us on this call, in quote, are the so-called African, quote, Americans, so to speak, as opposed to the African hyphenated American that we kind of, all of us fit into the category as well. Civic engagement, I'll wait until Mona kind of have us talk a little bit about it and see what I can contribute to this conversation. For me, my involvement, oh, by the way, I live in Brooklyn, by the way, let's say that. There's a wonderful strip here in Brooklyn on Fulton Street, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as hopefully we discuss a bit. But it's called the Bogolan Strip. Because of the African concentration of Africans who live in this area from the 80s, most of the late 80s into the 90s. And I want to talk about that as we go forward, because I think it's a very important, if you will, development, if you will. And I think what Mr. Mardah said earlier about communication and information, I want to see how we can tie that together to discuss the Bogolan Strip issue and see how, if you will, that can then to a much more broader swath of the challenges and opportunities, if you will, that Africans here in the United States at times have to deal with, confront, and indeed try to find a way to find a place for themselves in this country called America. Again, I just want us to have a conversation. I'll wait for the moderator to do so, but it's nice to see everybody. And Mr. Mardah, I think was it last year or 2 years ago, we were on the same call. Yes, both of us. So it's good to see you again. Mr. Barry, nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I hope, yes, and I hope we'll see each other one of these days, hopefully in person and not necessarily via Zoom. So I'll pass it back to Mona.
Thank you, gentlemen, for this, for your introductions. So, let's jump right into this. Yes, we have a thriving African community in Brooklyn. We also have a thriving African community in the Bronx. As a matter of fact, New York City has the largest population of Africans in the US, and the Bronx has the largest concentration of Africans. But wherever we are, Africans are thriving, families are doing well, small businesses are thriving. Africans in general are entrepreneurial, and parents like us, especially with our children, we push them to go to school, to get an education, and get those letters, those alphabetical letters after their names. That's what, that's our priority. But, with all of this, and I'll start with Mr. Mardah, with all of this, when it comes to civic, social, political engagement with, with Africans, when it comes to engaging outside communities, when it comes to engaging other communities, governments, the African community tends to stay in silos. We're not as active as, say, other immigrant communities, whether it's the Caribbean community, whether it's the Haitians, the Bajans, the Jamaicans, or even other groups, whether it's the Bengalis, the Pakistanis, the Russians, everyone else is socially, civically, and politically engaged, but we are not. So, Mr. Mardah, in your experience as a leader and an elder, a founding pioneer in the African community here in New York City, why is that?
That's a very interesting question, but I think we're seeing some progress. I would say in the last few years, and I would take the African Advisory Council as an example of us coming together and really trying to effect some of these changes together, as you rightly pointed out. I quite remember, when some of us first got here, and I think maybe Gbubemi can elaborate on it a little bit. We were not speaking for ourselves. We had other communities speaking for Africans, and so it was no surprise to see someone like Professor Small speaking for Africans. And people of the Pan-African leaders, as I call them, which there was nothing wrong with that, but the voice of the real African was missing, not the African American with the hyphen, as Professor Gbubemi rightly pointed out. I'm calling him professor because he is a political strategist. He's been in this game much longer than some of us have been, and so we learned from him. That's why I'm calling him professor, by the way. And so, our voice was missing from the conversation. So everyone else was speaking for us. There have been attempts to create a united front. There have been several organizations. One that I quite remember is the United African Congress, which is still in existence, but I think for some reason it kind of somehow developed into quote unquote.
Say it. Just say it.
No. I'm trying to find the right word because I am, I am a second vice president of the United African Congress, right? It is, I'm heavily invested in the organization. I've played a role in it over the years. I still play a role in it. But I think what happened was we kind of forgot the grassroots Africans along the way. Yes, we're doing some good work. We're still impacting communities in ways that most people probably don't even know about. During 9/11, UAC was out there. Ebola, United African Congress was out there with a huge concert at the UN, raised money. provided resources to African countries. All of these things have been going on, is still going on by the United African Congress, but somehow the grassroots don't know about these things. And I think, you know, these are some of the challenges that we are facing in terms of coming together. Like you said, we operate in silos. You know, Senegalese Association has been around for decades. We have the National Council of Ghanaian Associations. They've been around for years, right? Almost as long as ASA has been in existence. There's been other organizations, Togolese Association, the Liberian community, all of these things. And yet we cannot come together, you know, to fight, because we, at the end of the day, our issues are the same. We may come from different countries, but the issues are the same. And so if there's a way for us to really come together and join forces and really advocate for our community, I think it would be a much better result. We'll get much better results than what we are currently experiencing. And I think that's one of the reasons why up to now, we haven't been able to elect, you know, and someone who was born in the continent. We do have, you know, an African, a young man born here of African parents, you know, with traditional African values, I must say, which is pretty good. And kudos to his parents, Charles Force's parents. But you know, I think it's one of the reasons why we haven't been able to elect an African-born person here in New York. And it all boils down to the fact that we operate in silos. I think I've said too much. And I know I'm gonna get in trouble with my USC executives, but that's okay. I'll pass it back to you, Mona.
Thank you, Mr. Mardah. Mr. Barry, you've been involved in the African community, particularly the Senegalese community, now for over 10 years, and now in your role as president. With the Senegalese Association, do you work with other African groups? What's been your experience, or do you mostly work just within the Senegalese community? And how do you see, you know, the different associations, whether it's the Senegalese Association, the Guinean community, GICA, the Malian associations, and other African immigrant associations coming together and working together?
Thank you, Mona, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your speech, for your statement. It makes sense a lot for me. First of all, I want to say this. When we talk about civic engagement, we know civic and engagement, that's two words combined together. Naturally, we born like civilians, then we here for a mission, any of us. But the mission maybe can be different, saying that, okay, I am not doing something by volunteer. I'm gonna do something because I need to get paid. Some people, they think that way. When they come here, they say, okay, why should I do things for free? It's not me. Mardah can think that way. Sadio say, okay, I am engaged in my community because I think that I can help people because I know more than them, because of my knowledge, because of my experience. These people, they need the leader to show them the way how to get what they want. But technically, we as African, we have that problem in Africa, in America, in everywhere. First of all, our culture is different. Our tradition and our religion is different. And people, we from the same continent, but having different education. So when we came here, it's another contrast between the African and American society combined together, people running behind the money, people thinking individually. That's the problem we're gonna have. We don't see the civic engagement from each of us. But if you take an example in Africa, the way we live in your neighborhood, in your family, in your nation, you born to help, you born to assist people, you born to share whatever you have. your knowledge, your money, your health. But once you come here, it's become a big problem. I'm thinking I am better than Mardah. Mardah thinking he's better than Maka. Maka thinking he's better than Ambroise, or Ambra thinking he better than Maimuna. So on. That's the problem. You come as we don't have the opportunity to be together, because each association, on my experience, thinking you are better than the other one. So how we gonna be engaged to get the same goal to unite the African people? Even in my community, in Senegalese community, we have a big problem to be one. Okay, you have the haters, you have people who is in jealousy, you have people who think you don't deserve that position. Somebody think you are bad guy, they don't like you. They want to go by feeling rather than to see why what you're gonna bring to the community. I know what I'm talking about. Even you want to help, sometimes in the middle of your way, you want to give up, because you see a lot of your brothers and sisters, they fighting against you to put you down, because they think you are not the right person to do this thing, because they like Muna better or Mardah. They think that person should be at that position. That's the problem we have. You see the guy say, I'm Fulani, I am Mandingo, I am Jola, I am Bambara. The ethnicity come out to hold the people. I give an example. In the District 16 in the Bronx, we have two brothers who are running for the same position. That wasn't supposed to happen if we were united. On my understanding, when I heard that in the beginning, I was trying to unite those two guys. They're gonna be one run and to get the position. Because I believe if Mardah be a city council, he gonna set up a team that he's gonna call me. I'm gonna work with him, try to get the benefits for the African people. But that's not the case here. Unfortunately, they fighting between them as brothers. So that's why sometimes I think, do we think this civic engagement is for African people, is for us? I doubt it. The better, the harder you work to show these people this is the way we should go. Some people, they held him back to do something very bad, to talk down. It's difficult. It's difficult to handle this African society. That's me, but my personal experience is, what I'm thinking is, you know what? Let me do let me do my things. Help people who know exactly they deserve the help. They deserve a leader like me or somebody else to know, to understand at the end of the day, we have to unite it at the one point. What is that point? Is the opportunity, the benefits for each of us. It's not to fight against your sister or against your brother. But here in United States of America, specifically in New York, we have a big community, African community here, which could elect any candidate. If today we united, I think all those candidates are gonna run behind us because of our diversification, of our knowledge, of our fighting, or our understanding. But even between us, we cannot choose one candidate to push him on the front. That's very sad. That's very regrettable for us. And I don't know why and where this are coming from, but we already talking nicely, shaking hands, hi brother, hi sister, but that's not what we feel in our heart. That's the big problem here. I remember when they say Obama is African, I said, no, he's not African, he's not elected by black people. You have to remember that. If it was only black people, African people, Obama never gonna be in the White House. That's for sure. He's there because the white supremacy, the white people understand this guy, we don't judge him by his color, but we judge him by his experience, by his knowledge, by his charisma. If you use the White House, he's gonna change the way American people think. That's why they elect him. So let's see the person who, the leader who gonna bring us the opportunity. Not saying I don't like him or I like him. We have that problem in our African society. Mardah, you know what I'm talking about? So unfortunately, that civic engagement, I can do my best. Here on my own board members, people fight against me to succeed. That's the reality. You see that. They do their best you don't achieve your term to be successful. So how come we can mention that we are brother, we are sister, we can be together? How long the Pan-Africanism leaders African used to sing, used to cry, Kwame Nkrumah, let's be ones, Sekou Touré, Thomas Sankara. But at the end of the day, what's gonna happen? They behind the white people and they're gonna kill him by coup d'etat. And that's the same thing happened here in America. We don't go by kill somebody, but what they're doing on the bottom is dangerous. If they know Mardah is gonna get this position, they're gonna do all the best they can to override Mardah to get that position because they don't like him. I think we don't have to go by feeling. We have to go by who is the fit person, who is the right person to be here to lead us, and all of us gonna get the opportunity and the benefits. That's my understanding about civic engagement, Muna.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Both you and Mr. Mardah raised some very important points. It seems like we tend to bring some of the bad habits that are on the continent, we bring them here and we continue that behavior. It's 11:30 and I want to close with Mr. Okotieuro because I see Consul General Mackie Holder is on the line already. So Gbubemi, with your background, you've seen it all from the 90s, you know, all up to now, how things have changed, the interpersonal dynamics between African community leaders, all what Mardah and Sadio are talking about, you've seen. But you also are very politically engaged. You're a strategist, you're an operator. And for both of us in this space, what would be your advice to the African community? Because no matter what, we may be divided, but we still have the numbers. How do we organize and mobilize just as the Hasidic Jews? I always use the Hasidic Jews because they're like the best example, okay? No matter who it is, everyone is gonna go and kowtow to that community. We have numbers just as that community, but we don't have a seat at the table. So my question, Gbubemi, is putting all of the interpersonal, normal African family issues aside, but as a community, we have the primary coming up, the municipal election, mayor, public advocate, controller, city council. This is a very important election. The African community as a whole, whether it's something as a city council election, can decide if they organize and mobilize behind a candidate, can make that election. In your experience, how can we possibly do that, considering all the drama that usually goes on?
Well, thank you, Mona, for the very difficult question you've posed, or question you've posed. So let us see if we can quickly, given time constraints, maybe to be a bit more succinct with my answers. I think Brother Mardah, started well, I would say, and Brother Barry as well. And I think to answer your question, I think it's a combination of both things that both gentlemen talked about. And if it's possible to find a middle that would allow for the African community indeed to want to thrive in this society, in New York, particularly in New York. There are a couple of things I want to just put on the table. Brother Barry was kind of hinting at that earlier. I don't think he really totally finished his thoughts in terms of that. What is it that makes you valuable? You know, the whole civic engagement comes good if you understand value, yeah, as a person and or as a community. Allow me quickly to kind of go back 90s, early 90s. That was very similar to the UAC, by the way, you know, Brother Mardah. There was an organization that was put together called PADO, Pan-African Development Organization. The whole idea was to try and bring together everybody under an umbrella that would allow us to speak with one voice. We may disagree, you know, internally, but at least we speak with one voice when we engage government. That was I think it was in the year 1990-91, I believe it was, when all this entire thing started. I was privy to it and I knew some of the inner workings. I was teasing you earlier to say certain things because I don't want to mention anybody's name. I know why I was teasing you, because I happen to know some of the actors that were involved those days in, and I'll use this term, respectfully scuttled PADO for personal reasons. And I think it was quite unfair to the extent that the current, what I'll call newer Africans, who are trying to really find their way here in New York and really trying to have impact. There may be three things I'll just leave us with, which is this. You want power, you must understand, with all due respect, and I'll say this without hinting at anything. If you don't have money, if you do not have money, and when I say money, I mean to say, if you're not able to bring together some level of funding and funds to support candidates, be they Africans or African Americans or even white folks. If you're not able to do that, you have no seat at the table. Your issues become an afterthought, if at all they even look at your issues. I think the UAC, I want to suggest, could be such a vehicle now, given what we're now, where we are now, where everybody can be under UAC. Since PADO died, the actors play their games. So UAC is there. To the extent that UAC can be utilized as a vehicle, you know, to speak to all of our collective needs in the city, the better. The Senegalese community is there, the Guinean community is there. There are those, my very good friend Ahmad from Gambia, you know, in the Bronx as well. The Bronx is well known to having a very large number of Africans, and Ghanaians are there as well. To the extent that we can actually start from the Bronx as an example, not even Brooklyn. The Bronx is where a lot of our people are in this city. We're all over the place, but the Bronx has a large population of Africans. To the extent that we can use UAC as an example to begin to bring folks together. If you're not able to do that, there are cities that Mona mentioned. I happen to know that community very well. I live not too far from them. I have some good friends in that community. And I don't care who you are in this city, with respect to from the mayor to the governor, there is something about the need to speak to that community. Why is that so? Good example, the Bogalon that I mentioned earlier. In the Bronx, the African businesses, you know, all over the place. In Brooklyn, similarly, to the extent that those businesses can coalesce, right, around an issue, around something, to say, look, if you do this, this is what will come your way. It's not back home where I have to go and give you money to vote for me. No. No, this is America. Understanding that if you do not have that power, you don't have money, there's no power. If you understand the power dynamics, then you begin to talk about policy, right? Understanding policy, what it is that our community want, you know, that's good for our people, you know, to actually allow us to thrive in this great city, right? The Africans in this city who are starving.
I think Gbubemi is frozen. Yes, he's definitely frozen. Okay, so hopefully he'll be able to reconnect in a minute. But we're at 11:38 and we need to continue on with our brother from the diaspora. So panelists, Mr. Mardah, Mr. Barry, Thank you so very much for joining us today at Africa Day NYC. I want to thank you as well in advance for being the co-host today with Maimuna Davids. And we are going to continue now and move on to our next speaker, Consul General Mackie Holder from Barbados, who will be doing our keynote speech today, talking about, our relationships, our bilateral relationships with the Caribbean community, the African community, and Barbados is very close relationship with the continent. So thank you again, Mr. Mardah. Thank you, Mr. Barry. I see my favorite Consul General is here and ready. So Consul General, welcome, and the floor is yours.